All right. Mr. Wayne here. We are feeling really good right now. We already had our workout in this morning. We got back from contracts meeting a couple hours ago. Clothes are done. Got the food I needed for the week. And now we are sitting here with Master Key System. And you already know what day it is. It is Wednesday, June 18th. And we are coming up on the end of this race. It's been a long time. 6 months can be a very long time. You can do a lot in 6 months. And for this week, we have part 21. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So introduction, part 21. It is my privilege to enclose part 21. In paragraph 7, you will find that one of the secrets of success, one of the methods of organizing victory, one of the accomplishments of the master mind is to think big thoughts. Now, I like that because even in our meeting earlier, we were having a conversation about, obviously, real estate, but we were talking about building communities, right? Building buildings, buying land, meeting with builders, going over contracts with builders, going over zones, going over a lot of things that pertain to the success of a community being able to be run, right? We're talking about building the housing and renting out the housing. It was very fun. It was very fun. It was very cool. And those are big thoughts, right? Like, those are big ideas. Those aren't small ideas. In paragraph 8, which is what I love about the office I'm with, because we were able to have a legitimate conversation towards that idea, right? And it was a mastermind session. It was a mastermind conversation. And those are the conversations that I enjoy the most. He says in paragraph 8, you will find that everything which we hold in our consciousness for any length of time becomes impressed upon our subconsciousness, and so becomes a pattern which the creative energy will wave into our life and environment. This is the secret of the wonderful power of prayer. Again, why is this so? It's because the brain, right? Remember what happens when we visualize. When we go into the silence and we image the idea, when we visualize what it is that we want to create and we feel it to be true. Remember, it's about being so engrossed into your vision as if you're living it in reality, right? That's the spiritual conditioning working from within. Now, what happens is that the brain doesn't know the difference between what it's receiving externally and what it's interpreting from within, so to speak. And the brain will respond and you will create neural pathways in accordance with your visualizing process, as it would if you're experiencing it in the external world, right? The exact same thing happens. You become that which you are imagining, that you are thinking about. This is science. This is science of today. He says, we know that the universe is governed by law, that for every effect there must be a cause, and that the same cause, under the same conditions, will invariably produce the same effect. Consequently, if prayer has ever been answered, it will always be answered if the proper conditions are complied with. This must necessarily be true, otherwise the universe would be a chaos instead of a cosmos. The answer to prayer is therefore subject to law, and this law is definite, exact, and scientific, just as are the laws governing gravitation and electricity. So he's saying, when God, the universe, the infinite mind, the infinite spirit, answers prayers, he's doing it through the use of his laws. And he does this so things stay organized, they stay in order, and things work as it is said. if you want wheat, you plant wheat. Depends. Okay, hold on. Let me go over this. The law of growth. Wheatgrass will grow quicker than an oxen. I know we were using this example in a video earlier. If you want oxen, you have to grow the oxen. And by the law, it's still a law. It's an orderly law, and it works quicker for the wheatgrass as it will for the growth of the oxen, and so forth with us. Now, this law, when it comes to attraction, and the law of attraction with manifesting the things that you want, there is an order at play, depending on the size of the thing you are trying to build or manifest will determine also the length of time it will take for that manifestation to come about. Right? And it does it that way so things stay in order, organized. He says an understanding of this law takes the foundation of Christianity out of the realm of superstition and credulity and places it upon the firm rock of scientific understanding. Now we could add to that, if you weren't with us, or if you haven't heard yet, the Message of New Thought, Abel Allen talks about that specifically, about Christianity, and how the New Thought, even Horatio Dresser talks about it, that the New Thought is here to help take the idea, the understanding of Christ, what Christ really is, and awaken the idea, the knowledge, the wisdom of God within us, as was the original purpose of the Holy Bible, the Holy Book, to bring man into unity with God the Father, the infinite mind, this universal intelligence that we all live and move and have our being in. And us being created in its image, we are the manifestation of this universal intelligence to be able to manifest itself in a form. As Apostle Paul tells us, that Christ is the image of God in man. It's the Spirit of God within us. And as we're learning through the Master Key System, it's dependent upon consciousness. So we have to obtain that spiritual equivalent of what God is in consciousness in order to manifest the powers of God in the flesh. Because as we know, these laws work no matter what. Whether we are aware of their existence or not, they are working and they are in play. Now, when you attach your consciousness to the unity and unite your thinking with God's thinking, you will then create that alignment within yourself. Remember that polarity, since we're all batteries, so to speak, biological computers. Through the simple process of thinking, and in developing our wisdom and faith, we are enabled to come into unity with the workings of universal law. And through that unity, we are able to participate in using that law within our lives. And the reason we're able to do that is simply because of consciousness alone and the fact that we could think. Remember, it all leads back to our ability to think. It's amazing. Excuse me. He says, but unfortunately, there are comparatively few persons who know how to pray. They understand that there are laws governing electricity, mathematics, and chemistry, but for some inexplicable reason, it never seems to occur to them that there are also spiritual laws, and that these laws are also definite, scientific, exact, and operate with immutable precision. Yeah, that's the end of the introduction. Let's get started with part 21. So he says, the real secret of power is consciousness of power. The universal mind is unconditional. Therefore, the more conscious we become of our unity with this mind, the less conscious we shall become of conditions and limitations. And as we become emancipated or freed from conditions, we come into a realization of the unconditional. We have become free. So ultimately, this freedom that Mr. Hanel is talking about is mental freedom, it's spiritual freedom, that regardless of the situations and circumstances that we're meeting with on the outside, the mental freedom, having unity with God, There doesn't matter the condition you in, knowing that God is there with you and these laws work in your favor in accordance to where you are in consciousness. Even your external circumstances cannot stop you from getting to where you want to go. Now, it's a very, very powerful idea, and it's a very powerful thing to understand and to remember, because I don't know about you, these last several weeks have been very, very rough for me. And regardless of these situations and circumstances, I was sharing with a colleague of mine earlier, and you know what? I told her, I was like, you know what? We had our contracts meeting today. We're very happy about it. We know we're going somewhere. We know that a door was open for us. And then I told her, but it's not happening as fast as I want it to happen, right? Then that leads back to my timing instead of God's timing for me. Because I know real estate being a big, big thing, that isn't something you could just jump into and run with and be completely successful at it. You might have that miracle person every once in a while who just out of sheer luck got everything right at the first time. Well, I don't get everything right at the first time, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I don't know anyone who really does get everything right the first time. But ultimately, the long term, right? It's a long-term investment, and in a game like that, it's an investment mentally. There's a lot to understand, and recently, knowing that it's been about a month and a half, almost two, it's been a month and a half that I've already been involved in this, and knowing my past and how much my life has changed. And back then I was in such a different position in life, and I had more money to pay, more money in my pocket, but I did have less responsibilities. I have more responsibilities today, and I cannot shun those responsibilities. And it's good that, we're staying on top of what we know we need to be taken care of, because that builds the patience, right? Being patient. Before, back then, I would have been able to jump into it right away and already been running with it. But now where I'm at in my life, that's not the luxury I have yet. I know eventually when I have more financial strength, I will be able to do things like that. But at this current phase of my life, that's just not a situation I'm currently in. But we know that situations and circumstances change. So we may be dealing with these things in this chapter of our life, but does not mean that it's going to be like that all the time within my life. And I got to have hope with that. I got to have faith that this is just a chapter. But anyway, going back to taking longer than I want it to take. Right, learning patience in real estate being a long game, I would have to have lots of patience when it comes to the idea that I have behind what I want it to look for me and how far I want to go with it. Right? Because that conversation we were having about building legitimate communities, that was it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And, for me, I need to position myself to be able to run meetings and be the mentor, the leader that I know that I am, and so I could utilize my capacities as a human being in a much higher fashion than I am now. Right, what I'm doing now, working at Walmart, it's just a means to an end, and I have to remember that. It's just a means to an end, and I can't, it took a while to really see. Obviously, I seen that it was a great opportunity, but I see it being a better opportunity for people that don't have the aspirations that I have as an individual. Because not everyone wants to build their own thing. A lot of people are okay and comfortable with just being taken care of, being in a secure place, and living their lives, right? I'm not. I've taken a lot of risks in my life. I've lost a lot in my life. But like Les Brown tells us, Even if you've lost, it's well, like all of them tell us, it's not a failure. You've successfully found out what not to do. And you have your, what does he say? He says you have your winners, you have your losers, and then you have those that just have not found out how to win yet. Because you have your so-called losers that are winners, that are still winning, getting to that point of being a winner. And I believe I'm a winner, and you can't give up. You can't give up. Let's continue. Can't give up. Okay, so the real secret of power is consciousness. He says the universal mind, okay, we read that. We have become free. That freedom is mental freedom. It's spiritual freedom. And through that spiritual freedom, not letting your external circumstances dictate your thinking is what's going to allow you to rise above those circumstances in thought. Remember, the law works in accordance with our thinking. Napoleon Hill, he does give us a story, and real quick, because I know we do need to move on. He gives us a story about Edwin C. Barnes. And he says Barnes had absolutely nothing to start with except a dream, an idea to work with Edison. And the dude took a huge risk, moved to a completely different location to work with Edison. And the way he looked, the way he was dressed, he looked poor, he was in poverty. But as Napoleon Hill said, it wasn't what was on the outside, right? It was his mind. He had the mind, the thoughts of a king. And because he had those thoughts, he manifested his partnership with with Edison, right? Edwin C. Barnes manifested his partnership with Edison. And even though it took years, he manifested it. He did it. In regards to the circumstances he went through, he didn't let that affect his goal, his thinking. So he says, as we become conscious of the inexhaustible power in the world within, we begin to draw on this power and apply and develop the greater possibilities which this discernment has realized, because whatever we become conscious of is invariably manifested in the objective world. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. We ate about 30 minutes ago. We were going to wait a little bit longer, but we were very excited to get started. My apologies. Is brought forth into tangible expression. Okay, again, becoming conscious of this internal power that we already have within us, this power of which we are. Because everything's made out of consciousness, which includes you and me. All matter, all material form is made out of the same material, which is consciousness. It's the infinite intelligence. And when we understand that this is who and what we are, and we are a portion, an individualization of the universal mind, and that our nature is no different from the infinite nature, that in reality our nature is not different from the nature of God. We can't be different because we come from God. We're made inside and out of God. And you say you have your drop, right? Yeah, you have your drop of water, you have your ocean filled with water. That drop of water is still made out of the same stuff as the ocean. It's just in a little drop. It's no different with us. You and I are drops of the ocean, so to speak, in individualized form. We're little droplets of the infinite intelligence manifesting in a human form, having this human experience. And he's saying when we're conscious of that understanding, when we're conscious of knowing that we could legitimately create our own neural patterns, that we could create our own behavior, that we could create our own realities, that we can manifest the things that we want to manifest. And these manifestations happen by the simple action of visualizing and thought. Understanding that. He says that's what brings discernment, right? That's when the possibilities of what you're capable of doing become discerned, right? As he says here, when we begin to draw on this power, right, becoming more conscious of it, understanding it more, going into the silence and building it within you, he says, and apply and develop the greater possibilities with which this discernment has realized. This discernment, this understanding of this power within is what will give you, open the possibilities within you to achieve the things that you want to achieve. Again, this is also based on if you know exactly what it is that you want. You have to know what you want. And I could testify to that. I've already shared it in another video. I know when I put my focus on one thing and that's all I'm focused towards, I could see it becoming, right? I could see me getting closer to the goal. But then something else catches my eye and then I stop focusing on this and start going over here. All this other stuff over here begins to dissipate because the thing that was giving it energy, which was me, which was consciousness, my attention, my thoughts, are now being moved towards something else. And then the things are manifesting over here for me to create instead of over here, right? The very thing happened when I began getting into real estate lately, right? Everything that I was shooting, like when I was shooting for lead with Walmart, that's not on my goal anymore because there's something higher for me, a better opportunity for me, which is real estate. And now real estate is slowly coming together more and more. And everything I was doing at Walmart, essentially, I don't want to say, it essentially dissipated because my focus has changed. My goal has changed. And because I changed, the way that infinite intelligence, the way the law works, is changing for me. Instead of manifesting this, now I'm focused on manifesting this. And now, as we know, the way and reason this can happen is because our consciousness as humans is identical, one and the same as the universal infinite consciousness. Because remember, God works with your ideas, God works with your mind, your mental attitude, and your focus. As we're told in Proverbs, that we have to have the vision. A man without vision shall perish. And as we learn with here, it's we stopped feeding one manifestation and we started feeding another. And that feeding again is simply through what you are focused on. He says the result of this discovery is nothing less than marvelous and means that mind is extraordinary in quality, limitless in quantity, and contains possibilities without number. To become conscious of this power is to become a live wire. It has the same effect as placing an ordinary wire in contact with a wire that is charged. Now, as we were saying earlier, how we're with the polarity, right, with us being biological batteries, biological computers, right, and how thought, how Hanel tells us, is the scepter which allows us to connect with the infinite mind. Consciousness is the scepter. And he's saying you coming into unity with the workings of natural law is the exact same thing as a wire. Let's say you have a wire, you have your direct current, right? You have your electricity going through the current, but the wire is cut. But the wire is still connected to the source. The source is still giving out energy into that wire, but that wire is cut in half. It's not connected to anything. So the source giving the power has no final mechanism, so to speak, no final thing to plug into. He says right here, when you plug into the workings of natural law and you plug into the universal mind, it's equivalent to taking another wire that's not connected to anything and then plugging that into the wire that's connected to the direct current, right? The direct electricity source. And through that connection, now this part of the wire is given life with electricity. Now it's flooded with electricity because now it's connected to the current. It's the exact same thing with you, right? Unless you are connected to God in consciousness, you will be like the wire that's not connected to the source. Once you do bring your mind in congruence with the universal mind and the workings of universal law and with the Spirit of God, you are then connecting your wire to the source of all power. And you yourself become a live wire, right? You become a walking instrument for infinite mind, the power of the infinite to work through. He says the universal is the live wire. It carries power sufficient to meet every situation which may arise in the life of every individual. And how can it not? He's saying this infinite power, this infinite intelligence has the power to do anything. And it has the resources to meet any requirements for anyone or anything. As we're even told by Christ, he tells us that why are we worried about tomorrow? That the Father knows the things that we need, and he's doing everything he can to fulfill those needs for us. You don't hear the birds complaining about not having enough. The birds are always fed, right? Why do you worry about the clothes on your back when the Father knows you need it and he will give you clothing, right? And it gives, this infinite mind gives it to you in whatever way, shape, or form it's going to give it to you. Or we can't always choose how it comes about. All we could really do is state what we want with desire, with the vision. And then the universal mind will do whatever it does to bring that vision about. Because we don't always know the way, right? The way becomes plain for us as we take action towards it. Like, what was it, Samuel? It was in Samuel. King David, he said, God is my strength and power. He makes my way perfect, right? God makes the way perfect as we walk towards it with faith. It says, when the individual mind touches the universal mind, it receives all the power it requires. This is the world within. All science recognizes the reality of this world, and all power is contingent upon our recognition of this world. So as I said, the whole goal of New Thought is to bring man into conscious unity with God the Father, as Christ came to do for us in the form of Christ. And science today understands and has proven the realities of this infinite power that exists within us, as Christ taught us as the Father within. And how Christ even told us that we could perform these miracles. We can do amazing things. And us doing those things is dependent upon our recognition of its possibilities, right? Our recognition of our unity with all power. It is not I that doeth the work, it's the Father that doeth the work within me. It's a power that exists within. And faith is the mindset of letting that power activate in our lives. So we build a vision, we have the blueprint, and then we have to have faith that it is coming about. Again, faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. The size with just a little bit of the grain of mustard seed can and will move mountains, but only if we believe, right? We can't doubt anything. He tells us that we can't have any ounce of doubt, because doubt is what cuts the connection between faith, and your vision will no longer have the power it needs to manifest the given desire that you intend to manifest. It's very interesting, very powerful. He says the ability to eliminate imperfect conditions depends upon mental action, and mental action depends upon consciousness of power. Therefore, the more conscious we become of our unity with the source of all power, the greater will be our power to control and master every condition. As he ended one of the parts, was that the law of cause and effect is the highest of all human attainment, right? Being able to understand what causes an effect to happen, so you can conscientiously set that cause in motion deliberately to create the given effects that you desire to create. That's the highest of human potential. It says large ideas have a tendency to eliminate all smaller ideas, so that it is well to hold ideas large enough to counteract and destroy all small or undesirable tendencies. Well, it's very interesting he brings that up, because the example I just gave between manifesting one thing to manifesting another, right? I was manifesting a lead position at Walmart, and then I came across a bigger opportunity, a bigger idea for me, right? Something that's more beneficial for me and society. And that larger idea just swept the smaller idea away. It's like, forget Walmart, right? We got bigger things. We have bigger things coming. He says this will remove innumerable petty and annoying obstacles from your path. You also become conscious of a larger world of thought, thereby increasing your mental capacity, as well as placing yourself in position to accomplish something of value. Yes, this is something that I've been going over within myself too, because it's been about how can I position myself to take more advantage of this opportunity as compared to this one. How can I shift my lifestyle, my goals, my plans, my day around to allow me to get more involved into this? Right? It's all about placing ourselves, positioning ourselves to take advantage of opportunities. He says this is one of the secrets of success, one of the methods of organizing victory, one of the accomplishments of the master mind. He thinks big thoughts. The creative energies of mind find no more difficulty in handling large situations than small ones. Mind is just as much present in the infinitely large as in the infinitely small. Now remember, even Wallace D. Wattles in The Science of Being Great talks about this too. He says God is just as interested in the small things of life as he is in the big things of life. He's just as interested in a person's individual life needs as he is in the group needs, societal needs. He's just as interested in those things. And this is because God is everywhere, right? No one thing can be more or less important than the other, because God is present, whether it's on an individual level or on a social level. God is there. He's within it. He says, when we realize these facts concerning mind, we understand how we may bring ourselves in a condition by creating the corresponding conditions in our consciousness. Again, this is what visualization is all about. You're creating the condition first mentally. You're creating the mental equivalent, and then its manifestation follows after. You must be the thing first before you can have the thing. In the being the thing, we can create that being, that pattern within ourselves simply by visualizing. He says it right here. We may bring ourselves any condition. So there are no limitations. He says any condition by creating the corresponding condition, by creating the internal equivalent within our consciousness, within ourselves. And that internal equivalent is the blueprint, the mental attitude, the thinking process, the vision. He says, because everything which is held for any length of time in the consciousness eventually becomes impressed upon the subconscious, and then becomes a pattern which the creative energy will wave into the life and environment of the individual. Sure, I know me saying that my wife might be coming soon. We're not married, not yet, but that is definitely a desire that I have. He says, in this way, conditions are produced, and we find that our lives are simply the reflection of our predominant thoughts, our mental attitude. And I could testify to that through my own experiences, especially getting off of the energy drinks was not an easy task to do. I felt a huge dopamine deficiency. I didn't feel motivated to do anything. We still did everything we needed to be doing. I know training and exercise had a lot to help with my recovery, but drinking energy drinks for such a long period of time, I recovered much quicker than how long it took to recover from alcohol or drugs, I'll tell you that. But still, it was a huge dopamine deficiency. My motivation was shot. It was just like, gosh damn, I don't want to do anything today except sleep, right? Recover from what I had been doing to myself this whole time. Why did I bring all that up? I lost my train of thought. Again, use me as an example of watching this happen. Our predominant mental attitude, our predominant thoughts. Okay, we're a reflection of our predominant thoughts. He says, we see then that the science of correct thinking is the one science, that it includes all other sciences. And that's very powerful too, because he even opened this entire system talking about how important this discovery is, this mental science, because it gives us a path to unfolding the infinite possibilities of mind that exist within us, right? And because that science does what it's doing, since mind has been found to be the creative principle of everything, it is through mind that governments were created. It is through mind that businesses were created. It's through a person's mind that they decide how their home is going to be designed, how the internal structure and layout of their home is going to be. That all comes from the individual person's idea of what they themselves want it to be. So everything we see, this book was written by Hanel, which existed in his mind. This tablet that I'm recording off of first existed in a mind. This beautiful St. Michael Archangel candle that is in here first existed in somebody's mind. Right, so we know everything came from inside and out of mind. That's why mental science is the absolute most important discovery of all discoveries. And through the understanding of this discovery is what will enable us to conscientiously create the material world that we desire to create as a people, as a society. Wow, you know what? Real estate is perfect for me. because New Thought Society, it's an idealistic society. It's based within the individual. It's a spiritual thing. Well, real estate is an external thing. Imagine building a society of communities as well as building a society of people, right? Like in that internal society, that unity, the spiritual and the material together. Like, how powerful is that? And we know we could go anywhere and do anything with this information, especially with the power of money. That once we really get the money coming in, remember, wealth is a tool. It allows us to make choices, and we could choose and invest in building things for society. Like, we could build society, like we could build it. And money is the tool as well as the mind to do that. Okay, where are we? He says, from this science, we learn that every thought creates an impression on the brain, as we were talking about the neurotransmitters, the new neural pathways that are built. He says that these impressions create mental tendencies. Oh, excuse me. And these tendencies create character, ability, and purpose. And that the combined action of character, ability, and purpose determines the experiences with which we shall meet in life. He says all of it. He says our character, our abilities, our purpose. These three things are built upon the nature of our thinking alone. How we think about ourselves, how we think about situations, circumstances that we meet in life, how we respond to specific people, how we think about other people. Our thoughts about ourselves and about others and about external things are going to create our character, our abilities, and our purpose. It's going to have an influence on them. And these in turn determine the experiences which we meet in life. Remember, correspondence. The reason is because the external corresponds with our personal internal. So obviously, if we see life in a negative way, we'll be surrounded in creating negative conditions. If we see life and people in a positive way and things in a positive way, we will then create positive things in our life. Because not only are we showing up that specific way, but others and external things respond to us just as readily as we are internally. In neuroscience has explained that as mirror neurons, right? Everybody has mirror neurons. And mirror neurons are responsible for responding to one specific person or any specific thing in a certain way. Unless you're strong enough mentally and you don't let anybody's attitude determine your own, and you know that you could think for yourself and you could choose how you're going to respond to that situation. For those that aren't strong enough to do that for themselves yet, they get influenced by the environment. They're influenced by the external other people's attitudes. And because they can let a person's negative attitude affect their attitude, they're letting their mirror neurons override their ability to choose how they're going to respond to do it. Says these experiences come to us through the law of attraction. Through the action of this law, we meet in the world without, the experiences which correspond to our world within. The predominant thought or mental attitude is the magnet. And the law is that, quote, like attracts like, end quote. Consequently, the mental attitude will invariably attract such conditions as correspond to its nature. As we know, everything being made out of atoms, everything being electromagnetic and energy, knowing that we're electromagnetic biological batteries and that we ourselves have an electromagnetic force. He says our attitude itself is what determines the electromagnetic state that we will be in. He says the mental attitude is the magnet. Now, even Napoleon Hill talks about the money consciousness is the magnet for attracting riches, for attracting success. It's the money consciousness, and will bring that money to us. He even tells us once we start making it and we really establish that mental equivalent, it's going to flow to us like we can't even imagine how much money will come to us once we really establish that wealth consciousness. And as Hannah was saying right here, like attracts like. So the money consciousness is like having the money. The wealth, right, is the wealth consciousness. The health consciousness is like the idea or the reality of being healthy. We attract it to us. As he has already told us the program, everything's based on consciousness alone, because we are attracting the things with the electromagnetic force of who we are as people. Right? It's the law. He says, consequently, the mental attitude will invariably attract such conditions as correspond to its nature. He says, this mental attitude is our personality and is composed of the thoughts which we have been creating in our own mind. Therefore, if we wish to change the conditions, if we wish a change in conditions, all that is necessary is to bring a change in our thoughts, a change to our thought. He says this will in turn change our mental attitude, which will in turn change our personality, which will in turn change the persons, things, and conditions, or the experiences with which we meet in life. So knowing this, understanding this, he says no matter what, changing your mental attitude is going to change the people you're around. No matter what, a change in your mental attitude is going to change your environment. No matter what, a change of your mental attitude, let's say when it comes to opportunity, no matter what, all that you will change, your life will change to meet with the changed inside, the change of thought. So all we have to do, again, is to work specifically on our thinking, because all these other things externally, they will change by themselves. It's a very, very, very powerful idea and a very powerful thing to know, because if you don't know this, if you don't know that you're the one that has to change your reality, you're going to be working, you're going to continue thinking the same things, you're going to continue in the same attitude, expecting a different result externally. And what do we know from Einstein? Einstein says that is insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Thinking the same way you've always thought and expecting your life to be different than it was before. That is insanity. And people that don't know that, as we know, are going to be continually, since we know the law works in accordance with consciousness, those that aren't changing their consciousness, they're continually setting the law in motion one way, and they're trying to change the results externally. They're trying to change the outcome of things through the manifested part of the law. Right? When you have to go again, change your mind, change your attention to the cause of that outcome, which will be you yourself. Amazing. It's amazing. He says it is, however, no easy matter to change our mental attitude. No, it is not. It is a very, very, very tough thing to do because, let's say, for example, you're changing your eating. You get so addicted to a lifestyle or a way of eating, it's hard to change the way you eat. And that's just on the physical side. Now, mentally, it's a completely different story, right? Mentally, well, we can't say it's a completely different story. It's the same story, just on a different angle, right? Because now you're changing, instead of changing your physical food, you're changing your mental food. So you're going to start eating healthier. You're going to start feeling a lot better. There's a period from going to eating one way to eating this new way, right? There's a transition phase of you fighting the old you to embrace the new you. And then once you fully embrace that new you and you're eating healthier and healthier for longer periods of time, and then you're just like, I don't need to eat that stuff anymore. I got this better stuff and I feel great. It's the exact same thing mentally. Like I said, with the energy drinks, it was very, very difficult coming off of it, but the length of time it took to feel better mentally and feel okay mentally was not nearly like it was recovering from alcohol or drugs, right? It's a change. The whole point, it's a change of consciousness. You'll feel different mentally. You will feel like a different person, which we know is the goal, right? You have to be willing to give up the old idea of yourself and embrace the new idea of yourself. It's exactly what the Bible teaches us, right? With repentance and the renewing the mind, right? Let go of the old man and renew your mind in the new. You're becoming a totally different person mentally when you do this. But again, it is necessary for you to change to meet the requirements in changing your life for the better. It says the mental attitude is patterned after the mental images, the mental pictures which have been photographed on the mind. If you do not like the pictures, destroy the negatives and create new pictures. This is the art of visualization. Again, he's telling us visualization, just by the simple act and practice of going into the silence, visualizing, creating the mental pictures of the ideas of the life we want to live. That's all you have to do. And you do this in exchange and let go of old mental pictures, old ideas. You have to let go of the old in order for you to create the new. And again, the whole purpose of this program, as we've gone through the practices, if you've been going through the practices, it will be easier for you. It should be pretty easy for you right about now. We're already on our last month in this program. For the last 5 months, if you've been going through this with me since we started, you've been 3, 4, 5 days out of the week, 3, 4, 5 days out of the week, you've been meditating. You've been sitting in the silence. You've been securing control of your body. You've been able to create and dive so deep into the image at the exclusion of other ideas. You're able to get so engrossed into the idea, or visualizing. With this program, it has that whole process, so to speak. Let's put in these words. If you've been going through the process with me, this should be easy for you by now, to be able to go into that silence and build a clear mental image and concentrate on it so deeply you become engrossed in the image and it feels real. That's where you need to be. If you're not there yet, keep practicing. That's where you need to be. I got to tell you, I was so deep in meditation. It was amazing. It was beautiful. I got so engrossed into the idea into my vision. It felt like I was there in my body. Like I noticed my breathing. Like my body, I was just slowly breathing in, deep breaths, slowly breathing out, deep breaths. It's like our body is designed for meditation. In when we're in that state of mind, our body automatically responds by a calm, erect, controlled, relaxed meditation position. It was amazing. It's hard to explain. You have to have the experience for yourself. It's a life-changing experience. But again, creating the new mental patterns, if it's not easy for you yet, you haven't been taking the time to do this like you know you need to be. You need to take more time to dive in and develop the art of visualization, the practice of it. He says, as soon as you have done this, you will begin to attract new things, and the new things will correspond to the new pictures. To do this, impress on the mind a perfect picture of the desire which you wish to have objectified, and continue to hold the picture in mind until results are to be obtained. Now remember, willpower, the power of the will, is the ability to hold your mind on the purpose, on the goal, on the vision for a very, very long period of time until it just becomes a part of how you think, until it just becomes a part of you, that you just think that way automatically. Because remember, as you're holding onto the vision with will, it's continually getting built into your subconscious. It's continually getting built into your brain, your nervous system. And you will become it. You will become that which you are thinking about. You will enter into that electromagnetic field, so to speak. And due to the law of attraction, everything being electromagnetic in nature, even atoms, even matter, things in the external world, material that is on the same vibration as you are, you'll just correspond in one way, shape, or form. However the universe does, whatever the universe does, God will just bring you the idea in material form, in whatever way, shape, or form. Okay, let's continue. He says, if the desire is one which requires determination, ability, talent, courage, power, or any other spiritual power, these are necessary essentials for your picture. Build them in. They are the vital part of the picture. So he's saying, as you're visualizing the thing that you want, you also need to attach to that vision what you need to be, right? What abilities do you need to have? What kind of character do you need to be? How do you need to represent yourself? All that, everything needs to be built into that image of your position within the vision that you have. If you see yourself building a company and you're the CEO, you need to see yourself as the CEO. The behavior you need to have as the CEO, the strength and courage you need to have as the CEO, the amount of stress you'll be dealing with. See yourself handling the stress, making the tough decisions that need to be made for everybody else. You need to see yourself doing those things in the vision of what it is that you are creating. Again, he says they are the vital part of the picture. They must be in the picture. He says they are the feeling which combines with thought and creates the irresistible magnetic power which draws the things you require to you. They give your picture life, and life means growth. As soon as it begins to grow, the result is practically assured. Again, why is it assured? Because there is a law at play. He says, do not hesitate to aspire to the highest possible attainments in anything you may undertake, for the mind forces are ever ready to lend themselves to a purposeful will in the effort to crystallize its highest aspirations into acts, accomplishments, and events. So he's saying no matter how big the idea is, the forces of mind are going to be there for you to manifest that ideal. Because you have the purposeful will, right? You have a goal with a purpose behind the goal. And because of that strong conviction internally, you're going to be focused on it in these infinite laws, the law of attraction, the subconscious mind. They'll all respond and things will move to help you fulfill that purpose. He says, as an illustration of how these mind forces operate is suggested by the method in which all our habits are formed. We do a thing, then do it again and again and again until it becomes easy and perhaps almost automatic. And the same rule applies in breaking any and all bad habits. We stop doing a thing and then avoid it again and again. Until we are entirely free from it. And if we do fail now and then, we should by no means lose hope, for the law is absolute and invincible, and gives us credit for every effort and every success, even though our efforts and successes are perhaps intermittent. So he's saying, regardless of how big the thing is, you will be rewarded by your effort to overcoming it. Because what could be hard for one individual could be easy for another, right? And they may surmount it with ease, and this person may surmount it with extreme difficulty. But God will reward this person just as readily, if not more, in different ways, for the willpower, for the effort. Because remember, in this effort, the strength of will is what is being rewarded, right? And you will reap the same effects. Yeah, it's compensation. That's reciprocity. We always give back what we give in some way, shape, or form. Wow, you know what? Yeah, that definitely is how it is. If there's something very hard for us, but yeah, we surmount it anyway, we're rewarded with strength. The willpower to do something like that again in another situation. It's very cool, very interesting. He says, there is no limit to what this law can do for you. Dare to believe in your own idea. Now, we even were talking about this a little bit earlier, right? By the power of will, since we were just talking about will, when you hold the thought in mind with the will at the exclusion of other thoughts, and you do that for a very long length of time, it gets built in your system, built in your neurons, becomes a part of you, and you're automatically thinking that way. But it takes conscious effort to get there, because you have to say no to other things as well. Remember, just like if you're trying to eat healthier, right, you're saying no to the bad foods, more no to the bad, more yes to the good. Same thing when it applies mentally. More no to distractions and more yes to the things you know are going to help you in your thinking, grow in thought, and will help you get to the purpose of what you are trying to achieve. Because a distraction will take your mind away from the goal. And when your mind is not on the goal, you're not creating on the goal like you know you should be or could be. He says, there is no limit to what this law can do for you. Dare to believe in your own idea. Remember that nature is plastic to the ideal. Think of the ideal as an already accomplished fact. Now, again, remember how he told us when you think of it from the end, and when you think of your idea or visualize it, you think from the end in mind. You already think of it as an already existing fact and feel it to be true. Because your mind, yourself, and the universal will take it as if it were already true. And things will move to bring that reality into fruition. Because a mental equivalent is there. The spiritual equivalent will be there. And once that equivalent is held and maintained, the material equivalent will then come about. And again, he says, nature is plastic to the ideal. The external world will move itself around to help you achieve that ideal. He says the real battle of life is one of ideas. He says it is in the mind. The Bible says the same thing, right? It's the battlefield of the mind between good and evil, between right thought, wrong thought, between good ideas, bad ideas. It is fought out by the few against the many. On the one side is the constructive and creative thought. On the other side, the destructive and negative thought. The creative thought is dominated by an ideal. The passive thought is dominated by appearances. On both sides are men of science, men of letters, and men of affairs. So he's telling us there's two sides to the thinking world. He says there's the one side, which is the individuals that understand the creative power of thought and are not letting external circumstances dictate and determine their thinking, because they know that their thoughts and that they are the center of causation, that they could cause and influence a change in the environment. Then there's the other side, which he's saying are passive thinkers, which allow their thinking to be done for them by their environment. And because they're thinking on the level of their environment, they stay on the same level of their environment, and they don't move past the level of their environment. While the other person who is engaging in creative process of thinking is thinking higher than the environment, thinking above the environment, has the strength to think above the environment, and because of that is going to have an influence on the environment. One side is working in the realm of the environment, the other side is influencing and causing a change in the environment. Now, for you, viewer, for us, we're the ones causing the changes. We have to be the ones causing the changes, especially knowing and understanding this information and knowing that there's literally the only limitations are the ones that we set up for ourselves. And how lucky we are to not only live in the country we live in, which is America, we're lucky to even be in existence, and we're lucky to be connected with this infinite power. And because of that, it is our responsibility to do the most, the best that we can with this power. It's a responsibility, because most people will go through their entire life without ever having a grasp on anything like this. You have no idea how lucky you are to know this. We have no idea how lucky we are to know this. Imagine living your entire life without ever knowing what you are capable of. He says, let's continue. He says, on the creative side are men who spend their time in laboratories or over microscopes and telescopes, side by side with the men who dominate the commercial, political, and scientific world. On the negative side, or men. I think that should be are. On the negative side are men who spend their time investigating law and precedent, men who mistake theology for religion, statesmen who mistake might for right, and all the millions who seem to prefer precedent to progress, who are eternally looking backward instead of forward, who see only the world without, but know nothing of the world within. In the last analysis, there are but these two classes. All men will have to take their place on one side or the other. They will have to go forward or go back. There is nothing standing still in a world where all is motion. It is this attempt to stand still that gives sanction and force to arbitrary and unequal codes of law. So he's saying at all times, there's no such thing as standing still. At all times, we are in motion. At all times, things are in motion. That the law of change is a legitimate law. That no matter what, things change. Things are always vibrating at all times. At every moment, you are vibrating. And we have to maintain, if for a moment we think we could stay in one place, we are wrong, because things are constantly in motion. And we have to continue in motion to meet the required changes of the things that are in motion. I don't know how else I could say that. I know you understand what I'm saying. That we have to keep moving forward in a world that's constantly changing, and we have to change and evolve with it. He says in the last analysis, there are but these two classes. We just read that. That we are in a period. we're in a period. We are in a period of transition. I was saying period and transition in one word. A period. We're going to find that on the dictionary one day. That we are in a period of transition is evidenced by the unrest which is everywhere apparent. This is the complaint. The complaint of humanity is as a roll of heaven's artillery, commencing with low and threatening notes, and increasing until the sound is sent from cloud to cloud, and the lightning splits the air and earth. The sentries who patrol the most advanced outposts of the industrial, political, and religious worlds are calling anxiously to each other. What of the night? The danger and insecurity of the position they occupy and attempt to hold is becoming more apparent every hour. The dawn of a new era necessarily declares that the existing order of things cannot much longer be. Essentially saying too, since mental science and this spiritual science is the greatest of all sciences and is going to be the very thing that I believe will ultimately liberate humanity in the end. But that liberation is going to come with the change, because the world changes, because we'd essentially be changing from the inside out. And that's part of what he is saying here. Because of this new understanding, the existing order that existed before the understanding of consciousness has to roll away. It has to disappear, because just by the simple act of understanding and gaining access to this ability we have as humans, and our ability to create essentially whatever it is that we want to create, that understanding and knowing and utilizing that is going to create and cause a change by itself. Again, this is just another example of how this law works. It's just another way of saying what we've already said like 15 times today in this video. It says the issue between the old regime and the new, the crux of the social problem, is entirely a question of conviction in the minds of the people as to the nature of the universe. So he's saying right here, the biggest delay, we can say, right? He says the crux of the social problem, the main point of our social problem, or our problems as a society, is our beliefs about the universe in which we live. Right? He says the crux of the social problem is entirely a question of conviction in the minds of the people as to the nature of the universe. Right? It's the differences in our thinking, our beliefs of how this universe works in which we live. He says that is the biggest detriment, so to speak, the biggest there's got to be a better word than detriment, barrier to advancement. He's saying that's the biggest barrier to advancement, is people's differences of understanding when it comes to the nature of the universe. He says, when they realize that the transcendent force of spirit or mind of the cosmos is within each individual, it will be possible to frame laws that shall consider the liberties and rights of the many instead of the privileges of the few. So he's telling us here, he's literally telling us that, say, the level of inequality that we deal with when it comes to those that are extremely wealthy and those that are poor, and for those of us that are dangling in the middle, on the middle class, he's saying real liberty, the real rights of the individual, will be accessed when we as a people, as a society, fully understand the infinite transcendent force that exists within all of us. Ultimately saying, when everybody becomes one with God, when everybody understands their unity with this cosmic power, when everyone understands how they could set these laws in motion for themselves, and they're fighting for liberty and the rights of every individual, then everything will just naturally change. Our governments will change. The people will change. The way we live as a society will automatically change. Because these laws, how we find out how to give liberty and rights to the people, the way we do that will change. He says, as long as people regard the cosmic power as a power non-human and alien to humanity, so long will it be comparatively easy for a supposed privileged class to rule by divine right, in spite of every protest of social sentiment. So he's saying no matter how much people protest, no matter how much people ask for change, all that will not change until people understand that they are part of this cosmic power and that they can use this cosmic power. And through that understanding and discipline of actually using it is what's going to change. And he's saying the supposed privileged class to rule by divine right. He says this supposed privileged class are the ones that know this information and are using it for themselves and in their lives, which is why they are where they are. They understand the unity with the infinite mind, and they're using these laws for their benefit. They're causing their environment to be what they want it to be. They're not letting the environment dictate their thinking. He says the real interest of democracy is therefore to exalt, emancipate, and recognize the divinity of the human spirit, to recognize that all power is from within. It's very interesting he says that, because we know even like churches, for example, in religions, for example, they live by a democratic principle, because it's all about equality for everybody, right? And that equality comes from being the same internally as everybody else, like we do as Christians, to develop Christ within us, the mind of God in us. The goal of that idea, that purpose, is to get Christ in every individual, to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth. Now, a big thing that we have, especially with America, is the division within all these different branches of government, right? We need to have one solid common ground, one solid common idea that we could all live and abide by and agree with. And the best way to do that, the only way to do that, is through the emancipation and liberating the societal norm, the mind, the thinking, and to bringing everyone into unity with this cosmic power that all of us are a part of. Because there are some things, let's say with the Republican Party, I agree with a lot of it. I agree with almost all of it. But there are also things for the Democratic Party. Now, I don't agree with all of it, but I do agree with a lot of it. That's one of the things. Now, I know we as a society, we are one of the only species that saves the weak, right? We want to make sure everybody is taken care of, yes, but we also want to make sure we understand and know that labor and work is necessary to bring about changes, right? Legitimately working, thinking, and working are needed. So why take from the person who's working and give it to the one who's not? Now, if a person is capable of working, obviously they have the responsibility to participate in society. But let's say, what about the person that can't work? Are we just going to leave them there? No. That's where taxes, I believe, should come into play. Take care of this person that can't take care of themselves so they could still live and experience the life as a human as compared to the one that's perfectly capable of doing just about anything. Have that person do what they can do, reward them handsomely, and make sure this other person is still able to live and be okay. Let's move on from that, because that is a whole nother realm of information, which I know I still have a ton to learn about. I understand the spirit of what Mr. Hanel was saying. In order for all these things to change and to really change for the best, is to bring society as a whole into unity with this internal power. Because from that unity and understanding will greater things come about for everybody. He says that no human being has any more power than any other human being, except such as may willingly be delegated to him. The old regime would have us believe that the law was superior to the lawmakers. Excuse me, sorry. He's saying the old way of thinking will allow us to believe that the law is bigger than the ones that actually created the laws, and it's not. It's false. It's a farce. How can something which was made by us, came out of us, be superior when it comes to governmental standards than us? Right? Because we're the ones that created the government. We're the ones that put it into motion. Our species put it into motion. He says, herein is the gist of the social crime of every form of privilege and personal inequality, the institutionalizing of the fatalistic doctrine of divine election. Now, there is a lot of new thought that goes against creeds and doctrines and things and whatnot. I came to the conclusion, because not a lot of people know about new thought yet, and I believe a reason is because it hasn't been set up as a system of thinking. There is a way to systemize new thought and connect it with the old thought. He says the divine mind is the universal mind. It makes no exceptions. It plays no favorites. It does not act through sheer caprice or from anger, jealousy, or wrath. Neither can it be flattered, cajoled, or moved by sympathy or petition to supply man with some need which he thinks necessary for his happiness or even his existence. The divine mind makes no exceptions in favor any individual, but when the individual understands and realizes his unity with the universal principle, he will appear to be favored, because he will have found the source of all health, all wealth, and all power. So he's saying this divine mind, this infinite intelligence, has no favorites, as we are told that we are all equally foolish in the eyes of God, that we are all equally foolish before God. He's saying this mind has no favorites. It acts according to us. It acts according to how we set it in motion. He says our favoritism will appear to be as if we're favored by God simply because we are in conscious unity with Him. He says, for your exercise this week, concentrate on the truth. Try to realize that the truth shall make you free. That is, nothing can permanently stand in the way of your perfect success when you learn to apply the scientifically correct thought methods and principles. Realize that you are externalizing in your environment your inherent soul potencies. Realize that the silence offers an ever available and almost unlimited opportunity for awakening the highest conception of truth. Try to comprehend that omnipotence itself is absolute silence. All else is change, activity, limitation. Silent thought concentration is therefore the true method of reaching, awakening, and then expressing the wonderful potential power of the world within. So he's saying in the end, going into the silence is you meeting with God at its most basic form, its most solid foundation. Going into the silence is meeting God in its foundation. Because anything else, sound waves, light, anything, all that is an expression of this intelligence in action. But pure, complete silence is just no activity, but the activity and stillness of the infinite mind. Now that's the end of part 21. Now I'll end with this quote. He says, the possibilities of thought training are infinite, its consequence eternal, and yet few take the pains to direct their thinking into channels that will do them good, but instead leave all to chance. End quote. That's by somebody named Martin. So what Martin is telling us right here is that there is absolutely no limitations, that there is no limitation to how we think or the way we think. Our limitation is dependent upon our level of consciousness, but ultimately the potential is there to think anything, that we could expand our mind into an infinite way of thought, an infinite realm of thought. And he says only few understand this, and few will take the pains to participate in this understanding, this knowing. Well, the rest will just leave their life and fate up to chance. Now, you and I, we will not be the ones to leave things up to chance. We must conscientiously, and deliberately direct our thinking to the possibilities in the life that we see fit for us to live, to manifest. Okay, that's the end of part 21. We are on our last month. We got 21, 22, 23, and 24. 4 weeks left. We are definitely on the home stretch. We got to stay strong at the end of this process. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching with me. There's still a ton of information to uncover, not just for Mr. Hanel, but we got to go through the Science of Being Great. We got to go through all of Wallace D. Wattles series. We got to go through William Walker Atkins series. We got to go through all of Horatio Dresser's series. We got to go through all of Mr. Hanel's books, right? We got to go through Quimby's books, Horatio Dresser's books. I may have said him, I may not have. We got to go through Julius Dresser's books. There's just a lot to go through. But eventually we will get through everything. And as we build this and get through this, we're going to be building our real estate, get ourselves into a better, stronger position financially. And just long term, all this is long term. And be grateful and be patient and just take your time. Mr. Wayne, take your time, dude. Take your time. I love you. I will see you in the next video for part 22 next Wednesday.